Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show that takes a stack of radically different sources. We're talking dense celestial mechanics on one hand and revolutionary 1970s studio engineering on the other, and turns it all into the sharpest understanding you can get.
Yeah, we're here to get you well-informed and to do it quickly and thoroughly.
And today, we are immersing ourselves in one of the most, I think, compelling dualities in modern cultural history.
It really is. We have the moon's hidden face, the actual physical place, and then the groundbreaking concept album it inspired.
Exactly. We're exploring the scientific reality of the far side of the moon and the psychological depth of Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon.
And our sources give us, like, the perfect entry point. It's that classic line from the very end of the album.
Oh, yeah, the one from the Abbey Road doorman, Jerry O'Driscoll.
He says, "There is no dark side of the moon, really. Matter of fact, it's all dark."
And that line is just a spectacular distillation of everything, isn't it? Scientific fact paired with this deep philosophical insight.
It really is. It captures the exact tension we're going to explore. So our mission for you, our learner, is kind of twofold.
Okay.
First, we're going to cut through all the jargon to understand the surprising facts about the moon as a physical object. We're talking gravitational physics, tidal forces, and this profound geological asymmetry that makes the hidden face so different.
And second, we're taking a deep, deep inventory of the studio innovation. I mean, we're going behind the scenes at Abbey Road to unpack how one of the best-selling albums of all time was even made.
The tech, the concepts, the really unconventional recording methods that basically defined progressive rock.
And the sources for this are just an amazing collision. We have academic physics papers on catastrophic orbital mechanics.
Right next to Reddit discussions on space cameras and incredibly detailed breakdowns of studio equipment from the 70s.
It's a spectacular convergence. Deep space and deep sound.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. Hey, so we have to begin with the common misconception, the one that the album title, brilliant as it is, kind of reinforced for decades.
Right. The phrase, the dark side of the moon.
It's just fundamentally inaccurate, isn't it, when you're talking about illumination? It's a huge misnomer.
It's a massive misnomer. And it all boils down to a phenomenon known as tidal locking. The moon is tidally locked with Earth.
Okay, tidal locking. So what does that actually mean in simple terms?
It means the time it takes the moon to rotate once on its axis is precisely the same as the time it takes to complete one full orbit around the Earth.
So one spin for every trip around us.
Exactly. The two are perfectly synchronized.
So if it's spinning and orbiting at the same rate, how does the sun play into that? I think a lot of people assume the far side just never sees the sun.
And that's the core of the misconception. Because the moon is rotating, every single part of its surface experiences day and night. It's a long cycle, sure. It's about 2 weeks of intense sunlight, followed by roughly 2 weeks of total darkness. But the point is, it happens everywhere.
So there isn't a perpetually dark hemisphere. The dark side is just whatever side happens to be having its night at that moment.
Precisely. Just like on Earth.
So to be scientifically accurate, the part we never see from Earth, because of that perfect synchronization, is correctly called the far side.
The far side, or sometimes the back side, it's the hidden face, not the dark face.
And that distinction is so important because it lets you appreciate what the album title was really getting at.
Exactly. Pink Floyd wasn't making a statement about solar physics. They were using dark in the sense of unseen, unknown, unexplored.
Right. It connects directly to the album's big themes.
It does. Insanity, the subconscious mind, the unknown parts of our own psyche. It's just like how we used to refer to the Dark Ages. Not because there was no sunlight, but because of a perceived lack of knowledge.
That reframes the entire album. But let's dig into the physics a bit more. Why does tidal locking even happen? Why is it such a stable state?
It's actually an extremely common configuration throughout the universe, especially with a planet and a large moon. It's all about gravity acting as what we call a dissipative force.
So the gravitational pull between the two bodies creates these bulges, stretches on the surface.
Precisely. Just like the moon creates tides in our oceans, but imagine that on a solid body. Now, on the early moon, the bulge facing Earth was pulled slightly ahead of the moon's rotation.
Okay, with you.
And the gravitational tug-of-war between Earth and that off-center bulge creates a torque, a twisting force. And that torque acts like a giant cosmic brick.
So it literally slowed the moon's spin down over billions of years.
It did. It slowed it down until the rotation matched its orbital speed. That's the minimum energy configuration where the bulges are just permanently aligned with Earth.
What's amazing, our sources point out, is that this idea isn't new. It wasn't just some 20th century discovery.
Not at all. Immanuel Kant, way back in 1754, he proposed this. Centuries before we understood the complex math, he basically figured out that the moon's gravity would eventually slow Earth's rotation until both bodies were locked to each other.
That is just mind-bogglingly ahead of its time. And the system isn't even done evolving, is it?
No, not at all. We're still moving towards Kant's prediction. Because of that ongoing tidal friction, energy is constantly being transferred from Earth's rotation to the moon's orbit.
And that's why the moon is slowly moving away from us.
Yes. It's receding at a rate of about 4 centimeters per year. It's slow, but it's measurable. And this process will continue for eons until, eventually, Earth's rotation slows down enough to match the moon's orbit.
And then we'll have mutual tidal locking, the ultimate stable state.
Correct. But that's billions of years in the future. For now, the moon is locked to us, and the far side stays hidden. But when we finally did get a look at it, my God, the difference between the two faces was just shocking.
Let's talk about that stark visual and geological difference. What defines the near side, the face we all know?
The near side is dominated by those huge, dark, smooth plains. They're solidified volcanic lava, and we call them maria, which is Latin for seas.
Right, because early astronomers thought they were actual seas.
They did. These maria are what create the man in the moon patterns we see. They cover about 31% of the near side.
And the far side, the hidden face.
It's a completely different world. It's almost entirely mountainous highlands, and it is just peppered with craters, extremely heavily cratered. And crucially, it has almost none of those dark maria, less than 1% of its surface.
So it's geologically asymmetrical.
Fundamentally asymmetrical. And that asymmetry leads to the ultimate scientific irony that just completely contradicts the dark side name.
Ah, because without those big dark lava plains.
Exactly. The far side is dominated by the lighter-colored, highly reflective highlands. So physically, the far side is actually brighter than the side that faces us.
That's incredible. So
Yeah.
the side we see is technically the darker side.
It is. The smoother, lower, darker face is the one we've seen for millennia. And the scarred, mountainous, brighter face was the one that was hidden from us until 1959. So this profound difference, the fact that the near side has all these dark maria and the far side has this much thicker crust and almost none, that's what scientists call the lunar far side highlands problem.
It's a central puzzle in planetary science. Why is the moon so lopsided?
It is, and to figure it out, we have to go right back to the beginning, back to the moon's origin story, the Theia hypothesis.
Right, the theory that a Mars-sized object named Theia slammed into the early Earth.
And the debris from that collision, all this vaporized rock, coalesced to form the moon. And it started out as a searingly hot ball of magma, basically a global magma ocean.
Okay, and as that ocean of magma cooled down, the lighter minerals would have floated to the top, like cream.
Precisely. Mostly plagioclase crystals, and that's what formed the lunar crust.
But the mystery isn't that a crust formed, it's why it piled up so much thicker on one side. The far side crust is, what, 50 to 60 kilometers thick?
Right, well, the near side is only about 30 to 40 kilometers thick. It's a huge difference.
So how do we explain that?
This is where the genius of the Earthshine hypothesis comes in. It was proposed by researchers like Wen-Shui Liu, and it basically blames the proto-Earth for the entire asymmetry.
Earthshine. So let's paint that picture. We have the moon, already tidally logged, so it's always showing one face to the very young Earth.
Okay, so the far side, facing away into deep space, is being cooled only by the sun and the vacuum. It would have cooled down to a relatively chilly, say, a negative 20 degrees Celsius.
Cold. But the near side wasn't just staring at empty space.
No, it was staring directly at our planet, which at the time was still a molten, glowing hot ball of rock.
Oh, so the Earth itself was acting like a giant heater.
A massive celestial infrared heater. The sheer thermal radiation, the Earthshine, kept the moon's near side at a sustained extreme temperature of nearly 1,000 degrees Celsius.
1,000 degrees. That is an unbelievable temperature difference across the moon. How did that lead to a thicker crust on one side?
Well, that thermal gradient drove a global circulation pattern in the magma ocean. It was like a giant conveyor belt. The intense heat on the near side kept the magma liquid, so it was harder for crystals to form and stick.
But the far side was much colder, so it acted like a heat sink.
Exactly. Magma would flow from the hot near side over to the cooler far side.
And it would carry those floating plagioclase crystals with it.
It hurted them. The circulating magma literally pushed the buoyant, crust-forming crystals from the perpetually hot near side over to the cooler, more stable far side where they could pile up much more efficiently.
So the Earth basically created a thermal pump that thickened the crust on the hidden side.
That's a great way to put it. And later, when asteroids and comets bombarded the moon, the thin nearside crust was much easier to crack open, allowing lava to flood the basins and form the Maria.
Which didn't happen as much on the thicker far side. That is an incredibly elegant solution to the highlands problem.
It is. It connects the physics of tidal locking directly to the geology we see today. Now, if we want to go even deeper, we can talk about the stability of that tidal locking itself.
Okay.
And that's where this really high-level mathematical concept of the fold catastrophe comes into play.
Okay, catastrophe sounds dramatic. Let's break this down carefully for the learner.
Right. So in physics, catastrophe theory isn't about explosions or disasters. It describes sudden dramatic shifts in the stability of a system when you apply continuous forces.
So you're modeling the energy of the Earth-Moon system.
We're looking at its effective gravitational potential. You can think of it like an energy landscape, with hills and valleys. A stable orbit, like our moon's, sits at the bottom of a valley, a local minimum. It's a stable equilibrium.
Like a marble in a bowl. It always settles at the bottom.
Exactly. But the sources show that the very existence of that stable point, that valley, is conditional. It's regulated by a single dimensionless control parameter.
The single number that summarizes the whole system.
It basically combines things like the masses, the rotation rates, the angular momentum. It's a summary of the system's spin and tightness. And the fold catastrophe happens if that parameter exceeds a critical value.
Value
Little 27 over 256. If the system's properties push it past that threshold, the stable point, the bottom of the valley, suddenly vanishes. It literally disappears.
So the orbit no longer has a stable resting state. It's mathematically doomed to either crash or fly away.
Precisely. The system loses its ability to stay in that tidally locked configuration. And we can actually see this in action with the Mars-Phobos system.
Phobos, Mars's little inner moon. It's on a collision course, isn't it?
It is. Phobos orbits faster than Mars rotates, so it's inside what's called the aerostationary orbit. And this model shows that its current position is on the unstable side of the energy peak. It's past the no return point.
So tidal friction is working against it. It's losing energy.
It is. Phobos is undergoing intense tidal deceleration. Because it's in that unstable zone, its orbit is mathematically destined to keep decaying. It's spiraling inward and will eventually crash into Mars.
Wow. What about Deimos, the other moon of Mars?
Deimos shows the opposite. It's much further out, orbiting slowly. It's undergoing tidal acceleration.
So friction is pushing it away from Mars.
Yes, it's spiraling outward and will eventually settle into a much more distant, stable, tidally locked orbit. So this one single model, governed by that 27,256 threshold, perfectly predicts the totally different fates of both of Mars's moons.
It's one model that explains the whole range of behavior.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So for all of human history, the far side was just a theory. I mean, we had these incredibly elegant models for its gravity and its crust, but nobody had ever actually seen it.
Right. And capturing that first image was a huge deal in the early space race, a major part of the Cold War competition.
It was the ultimate mystery right next door. And in 1959, just 2 years after Sputnik, the Soviet Union got there first.
They did. A huge propaganda win with the Luna 3 probe.
Luna 3 captured the first 29 low-res images of the far side. And we really need to pause and just appreciate how insanely difficult that was in 1959.
People overlook the complexity. This wasn't digital. They launched this probe on an orbit that swung it around the moon. Then it had to take pictures with a regular 35mm camera.
With film that had to survive the radiation and temperature of space.
Exactly. But here's the craziest part. It then had to develop the film on board.
Wait, in space?
In space. The probe had a tiny automated chemical film processing unit inside. It had to run the film through developer, fixer, and then dry it, all in zero gravity.
That's unbelievable. And once the film was developed, it had to somehow get the image back to Earth.
Right. So the probe then scanned the physical film negative, kind of like an early fax machine, turning the image into an electrical signal that it beamed back across hundreds of thousands of kilometers of space.
So the first images we saw were basically faxes from the moon.
They were, and they were grainy and streaky and low resolution, but they were enough. They confirmed the theories. Heavy cratering, almost no Maria. It was the first physical proof of the Highlands problem.
A monumental achievement. Now, fast forward to today, and we get these incredible images of the moon crossing the face of the Earth from the DSCO-VR satellite.
Right, the Deep Space Climate Observatory. It sits way out at the L1 Lagrange point, about 1.6 million kilometers away, and just stares at the Earth all day.
Its main job is climate science, right? Monitoring ozone, vegetation, clouds.
Yeah, using its APIC camera. The moon passing in front of the Earth, which happens about twice a year, is really just a spectacular side effect of its main mission.
Now, here's the interesting tech debate our sources bring up. The EPIC camera on this modern satellite only uses a 4-megapixel sensor.
Right.
I mean, my phone has way more than that. Why would NASA in 2015 use what sounds like technology from the 90s?
It's a classic case of reliability over marketing specs. The key word is space hardening.
Okay.
When you're building something for a mission deep in space, where it's constantly being bombarded by cosmic rays and huge temperature swings, you don't use the newest, fanciest chip. You use reliable, proven technology that you know will survive.
So rugged, older architecture is actually better than the latest thing.
For this purpose, yes. The primary goal for EPIC wasn't super high resolution. It was minimizing image noise and ensuring it would last for years. The more pixels you cram onto a sensor, the smaller they are and the less light each one gathers.
Which means you have to amplify the signal more, and that creates noise.
Exactly. And for science, noise can completely ruin your data. So they used larger, proven 4-megapixels to maximize light gathering and keep the electronics simple and robust. It's an engineered solution for extreme durability, not for taking pretty vacation photos.
So the technology itself reflects the harsh, unseen reality of space.
That's a really interesting bridge, actually. We've talked about the physical and photographic reality of the far side. Let's pivot now and get into the psychological and sonic reality of the album.
The one that explored the unseen limits of the human mind. So, The Dark Side of the Moon. It comes out in 1973. It's Pink Floyd's 8th album, and it's a profound change for them.
Before this, they were known for these, long, sprawling psychedelic jams.
Very abstract. This album was conceived from the start as a very focused concept piece. It was about the pressures of their lifestyle and really centrally about the mental collapse of their founding member, Syd Barrett.
And that thematic shift was driven mostly by Roger Waters, the main lyricist. He was the one who wanted to write about the things that drive people insane. He lists them out. Conflict, greed, the tyranny of time, the fear of death, and the breakdown of human connection. He called it a failure of empathy.
And he wanted the lyrics to be very clear and specific, which was a huge change for them.
It was, but what's really unusual in rock history is how they developed it all. They didn't just go into a studio.
No, they toured it first. They treated it like a play they were workshopping in front of a live audience.
For over a year, the entire suite of music was premiered in January 1972. They refined it on the road, tweaking transitions, changing things based on how it felt to play it live. So by the time they walked into Abbey Road, the whole thing was already incredibly mature.
And the original title really hammered home the theme, didn't it? Dark Side of the Moon, a piece for assorted lunatics.
It really did. They actually changed it briefly to Eclipse because another band put out an album with a similar name.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but that other album flopped commercially, so Pink Floyd just went, nope, we're taking our title back.
And the final structure is just genius. It's continuous, it's cinematic, it starts and ends with that heartbeat.
Right, the heartbeat acts as the pulse of life, the framework for the whole thing, and side one just throws you right into the pressures of everyday life.
Speak to me and breathe in the air. Kick it off, contrasting, gesisting with the anxiety of a life stuck in a routine.
Which flows right into On the Run, which is this frantic, anxious instrumental. It came from Richard Wright's intense fear of flying.
And they used that VCS3 synthesizer to create that feeling of manic movement, which we'll get into.
Then that whole pace is just shattered by the alarms and clocks of time.
The big warning about letting life just slip by while you're focused on trivial things.
Time is really the centerpiece of side one, and the side closes with The Great Gig in the Sky, where that wordless vocal becomes this universal metaphor for death.
And then you flip the record, and side two opens with Money, that iconic cash register loop.
It's such an aggressive shift. It pulls you right into the social pressures, the consumerism, and it's musically so strange with that 74 times signature.
Right, gives it that weird lurching feel. It's unsettling.
Which is the point. Then us and them broadens the focus from just personal greed to social conflict, how we divide ourselves.
Yeah, and after that, the instrumental Any Color You Like, which feels like it's about the illusion of choice.
Yeah, before it leads into the emotional core of the whole record.
Brain damage, with that explicit reference to Syd Barrett. And if the band you're in starts playing different tune.
It's the conceptual climax. It's all about that fragile line between sanity and madness. And then Eclipse closes it out, trying to find some common ground in the shared human experience before that heartbeat finally fades away, completing the cycle.
The whole thing is it's a journey, meticulously designed.
You really can't separate the album's impact from its technical achievement. The sessions at Abbey Road happened at the perfect time because the studio had just gone through a massive upgrade.
So they walked in right as all this new gear was being installed.
Incredible timing. They got to move beyond the old 4- and 8-track recorders. Abbey Road had just installed the new Studer A80 16-track tape machines.
Which was huge for layering all those complex sounds and tape loops.
It was essential. And the other key piece of tech was the mixing desk itself. The new TG12345 console.
Okay, what was so special about that console?
Well, before this, if an engineer wanted to add compression to a track, they had to physically patch in an external piece of gear. The TG12345 was one of the first big consoles with compression circuits built right into every single channel.
So you could just turn a knob on any track to add compression.
Instantly. It completely changed the workflow, and the compressors on that desk were known for having a wonderfully brutal sound. They could really make an instrument jump out of the speakers.
And this all fed into the philosophy of their engineer, Alan Parsons.
It did. Parsons, who was only 23 at the time, was a big believer in front-end processing.
Meaning you get the sound right on the way in.
Exactly. Perfect the sound at the source. The right mic, the right placement, applying EQ and compression during the recording itself. Minimize fixing it later. He always said it was about good mics and good mic preamps.
Let's talk about the specific sounds. The synths are just iconic.
They were early adopters of the EMS VCS3 synthesizer, and that's all over On the Run, that fast, arpeggiated loop that sounds like a chase scene.
How did they do that?
The VCS3 had this groundbreaking onboard analog sequencer. They would program a sequence of notes and then play it back at incredible speed while manually twisting the filter and oscillator knobs live to create all the sweeps and bends.
And David Gilmour used it for the swooshing vehicle sounds too.
Yeah, he created an artificial Doppler effect. He'd manipulate the pitch of the synth while rapidly panning the sound from left to right in the stereo field. It sounded just like a car rushing past you. Early, brilliant sound design.
Beyond the synths, there are the tape loops. Let's break down how they made the loop for money.
That 7-beat loop was physically constructed with razor blades and tape. Roger Waters recorded the raw sounds first.
The cash registers, tearing paper.
And famously, the clinking coins, which he made by throwing coins into his wife's ceramic mixing bowl from her pottery studio.
So he records the sounds, then physically cuts the tape and splices the little pieces together into a 7-beat loop.
A perfect continuous loop. He then fed that physical loop into the 16-track recorder across 4 different tracks, which let them pan the sounds around the room, making it feel like the money was swirling around your head.
It's an incredible amount of work for one effect.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the miking, because Parsons made some really unconventional choices.
He did. For Nick Mason's drums, he put a big AKG D20 mic inside the heavily dampened kick drum to get that dry, thuddy sound. But his choice for the snare was really unusual.
He used a Neumann U87, which is a condenser mic.
Right, a mic usually used for vocals. Most engineers would use a dynamic mic on a snare. Parsons also refused to put a mic on the bottom of the snare drum.
Which is standard practice to capture the sizzle of the snares.
He hated it. He preferred to get all the high-end snap just from EQing the top U87 mic. He wanted a cleaner sound.
And he used that same U87 on David Gilmour's guitar amps.
Which was also a radical choice. The standard was, and still mostly is, a dynamic mic like a Shure SM57 right up on the speaker cone.
So why the condenser?
Parsons argued that dynamic mics have this harsh peak in the upper mid frequencies that he didn't like. He felt the U87 gave a smoother, more natural sound, and he didn't put it right on the speaker.
He backed it off a bit.
A few inches back. That way he wasn't just capturing one speaker, he was capturing the blended sound of all 4 speakers in Gilmour's cabinet working together. It was all about depth.
And then there's the human element, the voices, the little sound bites woven through the album.
Those came from these flashcard sessions Roger Waters ran. He'd bring people at the studio, roadies, staff, anyone into a dark room and show them flashcards.
With questions on them.
Yeah, questions from what's your favorite color to when was the last time you were violent and were you in the right? He wanted raw, honest answers.
And the Abbey Road doorman, Jerry O'Driscoll, was the star.
He was. He gave them the opening line, I've been mad for fucking years, and that amazing closing quote about the dark side of the moon.
But the most famous people they interviewed got cut, right? Paul and Linda McCartney.
They did. Their answers were rejected because, according to the band, they were trying too hard to be funny. They were performing, not reflecting. Waters wanted authenticity.
Which brings us to Claire Torrey, the voice of The Great Gig in the Sky.
Alan Parsons suggested her. She was a session singer. They brought her in, but they had no lyrics for her. They just told her to improvise, to express grief and fear and death with her voice.
And she just let it rip in a couple of takes.
She was apparently so embarrassed by it, she apologized afterwards. But the band was floored. They paid her the standard session fee of £30.
30 pounds. And that became the basis of her lawsuit decades later.
It did. In 2004, she sued, arguing that her vocal was so unique it amounted to co-authorship of the song, and she won. They settled out of court, and now she's credited as a co-writer on all pressings since 2005.
Wow. And finally, Chris Thomas, the mix supervisor.
He was brought in at the very end to be a mediator. Waters and Mason wanted a dry, clean mix. Gilmore and Wright wanted a wetter, more echoey mix. Thomas was the guy who found the compromise that made the final album sound the way it does.
So all of that work, all that innovation,
Yeah.
it resulted in not just a great album, but maybe the biggest commercial monster of the entire album era.
The numbers are just staggering. It's the fourth best-selling album in history. Over 45 million copies sold worldwide.
In its run on the U.S. charts is the all-time record, right?
It is. As of January 2026, it has spent 996 non-consecutive weeks on the Billboard 200 chart.
996 weeks. That's almost 19 years on the chart. That's insane.
It is. And that kind of success brought incredible wealth. It's what allowed Nick Mason to start his famous car collection. And famously, they invested some of the profits into producing Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
But the great irony is that Alan Parsons, the engineer who was so crucial to the sound, was just paid a weekly wage.
Just 35 pies a week. He got a Grammy nomination, but he often talked about the frustration of watching the band make millions. But to his credit, he leveraged that success and fame into his own career with the Alan Parsons Project.
And the visual identity is just as famous as the sound, the prism artwork.
The design by Hypnosis by Storm Thorgerson and George Hardy. The band wanted something simple and bold, and they chose it unanimously.
And the idea for the prism came from a physics textbook.
It did. Thorgerson saw it and knew it was perfect. It represented the band's stage lighting, the album's themes, and the spectrum continues across the gatefold and reverses on the back.
And eagle-eyed fans will notice there are only 6 colors in the spectrum.
Right. They left out indigo. It was based on the specific colors of their stage lights, not the traditional 7-color spectrum. And the original LP came with posters and stickers, too. A whole package.
And that artwork has kept evolving.
It has. For the 30th anniversary reissue, which had a new 5.1 surround sound mix, the cover was a photo of a custom-made stained glass window version of the prism to reflect the purity of the new mix.
And the album's cultural footprint is still being debated today. Critics often compare it to Radiohead's OK Computer.
They do, and it's a fair comparison. Both albums are really about the creative individual struggling to stay sane in this isolating, consumerist modern world. The themes are timeless.
Of course, we have to talk about the urban legend, Dark Side of the Rainbow.
The alleged synchronicity with the Wizard of Oz.
If you start the album at the third roar of the MGM Lion, the coincidences they're pretty spooky.
They're undeniably uncanny. Dorothy jogging to the lyric, "No one told you when to run." The Tin Man tapping his chest right as the heartbeat comes in.
But the band has always denied it, right?
Vehemently. Roger Waters and Alan Parsons have both said it's complete nonsense. Parsons called it a complete load of eyewash. And given their intense recording schedule, it's almost certainly just a massive, fascinating coincidence.
And the album's themes have even found new political life recently.
They have. In 2023, for the 50th anniversary, a mural inspired by the Prism cover called Grow in Freedom was painted on a hospital in Brussels that was providing aid to Ukraine. The spectrum of light became a symbol of hope and freedom. #outro. This whole deep dive really shows how the pursuit of knowledge, whether it's astrophysics or audio engineering, just leads to these fascinating places.
It really does. On one hand, we have the thermodynamics of Earthshine creating the moon's crust and the fold catastrophe that dooms a moon like Phobos.
And on the other, we have the psychological pressures of being in a rock band, detailed right down to which microphone you put on a guitar amp, and the legal fight over an improvised vocal.
The dark side, whether it's geological or psychological, it seems to always represent the limits of what we know and the search for empathy in a chaotic world.
So, our key takeaways for you are these. First, the moon's near side is so different because the molten proto-Earth acted like a giant radiator, pumping crust-forming minerals onto the cooler far side. That's the Earthshine hypothesis.
Right. And second, the stability of any tidally locked orbit is governed by that fold catastrophe. If a system's core parameter crosses that 277,256 threshold, its stable orbit just disappears.
And finally, the dark side of the moon's iconic sound came from new 16-track recorders and, crucially, that TG12345 console with its built-in compression on every channel, which let Alan Parsons sculpt the sound at the source.
So let's leave you with a final provocative thought, and it goes all the way back to Immanuel Kant's prediction from 1754.
Right. The ultimate fate of the Earth-Moon system.
We know the moon is receding by 4 centimeters a year, and that's slowing down the Earth's rotation.
So in the very, very distant future, billions of years from now, that process will finally complete. The Earth's rotation will slow until it perfectly matches the moon's orbit. We'll have mutual tidal locking.
So what does that mean?
It means the moon will hang motionless in the sky. It will be permanently visible from only one half of the planet and completely invisible to the other half forever.
Wow. So imagine a future civilization where half the world never ever sees the moon and the other half sees it locked in the sky in one spot. What would that do to our mythology, our culture, our sense of the cosmos?
Something to consider the next time you look up.